But I think a poem does even more than that. Poetry doesn't just make our speech unforgettable, which of course I think is the most important thing, which allows us to remember the things we want to remember. But I think poems and poetry also can tell us things that we can't be told any other way. Let me give you an example. My journey as a writer and as a poet also took me to Mexico, where I studied in the city of Oaxaca in southern Mexico. I studied Spanish, and I was learning about the peoples who live in that city and around that city and indigenous communities. And to learn Spanish, I used a method which involved me memorizing quite a bit of prose and poetry, even before I understood what it meant. And one of those poems was this poem by Pablo Neruda from his famous early book, 20 Love Poems and a Song of Despair. He wrote it, he published it when he was 20 years old, which is very young to publish a great book as a poet. And it's probably one of his best books. I can still remember how it begins. In Spanish, it goes, "Puedo escribir los versos más tristes esta noche. Escribir, por ejemplo, la noche está estrellada y tiritan azules los astros a lo lejos. El viento de la noche gira en el cielo y canta. Puedo escribir los versos más tristes esta noche. Yo la quise y a veces ella me quería. Tonight, I can write the saddest lines." Right? For example, the night is starry, and the stars are blue and shiver in the distance. The night wind revolves in the sky and sings. Tonight, I can write the saddest lines. I loved her, and sometimes she loved me too. It's a poem at the end of a romance, when she's left him, and he's all alone, and he's still yearning for her, but he doesn't love her anymore. And he says, "I no longer love her, that's certain, but how much I loved her." And then he comes to this line, "I no longer love her, that's certain, but maybe I love her." And one can ask, as I will now ask you, how can that be? I no longer love her, that's certain, but perhaps I love her. Is the poet contradicting himself? What do you think? Is it true? Could that be true? I'd say yes, of course he's contradicting himself. And it's also true, because we contradict ourselves. And you can do that in a poem. You can express how it can be with us, with our contradictory feelings. No, I don't love her, I love her so much. And you can do that in a poem in a few lines, and it gets at something that we can't get at another way. But of course, we can also ask, well, that's very nice, Tom. You're talking about love poetry, love poetry. Ugh, enough about love. Well, you know, is love really all that? I mean, there's more to life than love. I mean, it's just one of the many things in a life, right? Well, here's another of my favorite poems, returning now to English. This is a poem by Edna St. Vincent Millay, one of the first poets that I studied and began memorizing when I first moved back after living in India and Mexico. And she says, it's called "Love is Not All." Love is not all. It is not meat, nor drink, nor slumber, nor a roof against the rain, nor yet a floating spar to men that sink, and rise and sink, and rise and sink again. Love cannot fill the thickened lung with breath, nor clean the blood, nor set the fractured bone. Yet many a man is making friends with death, even as I speak, for lack of love alone. It may be that in a difficult hour, pinned down by pain and moaning for release, or nagged by want past resolution's power, I might be driven to sell your love for peace, or trade the memory of this night for food? It may well be. I do not think I would. And so here we have a love poem which asks and does not answer the question. That's something else you can do in a poem. Because there is no easy answer to that question. Yes, it matters. No, it doesn't. How much? A lot and a little, all at the same time.